we all are in a superstore of digital innovations. But now we are also at a point that because of digital innovation, there is a rise of new brands. Innovation is not about big success. Innovation starts with some to medium success.
It's a huge trap. It's a huge trap for marketers.
What puts back an ownership on us is to make very wise choices. You know, marketers often, when it comes to especially digital, have this fear of FOMO.
Innovation is equal to risk, and risk needs to be managed. Thank you. Some high expectations being set. I hope we try to come closer to that. Yeah. Okay, so first off, I want to just thank Sudhanshu. I think the points which Sudhanshu articulated today morning were so apt out there. And personally for me, like, I'm a big believer of partnerships. And I think that's something which is a huge segue to our topic as well. Okay, because we are talking about innovation and we are talking about how innovation can impact digital marketing. You know, when I heard the topic given to us of innovation and impact on digital marketing, and I immediately looked at the amount of time we had. You know, so we had like 30-40 minutes, and I felt like, look, this is a conversation which can be a day-long conversation, and believe you me, we will still not have enough of it. You know, so in the next 30-40 minutes, we'll try to touch upon some interesting facets around innovation and how it impacts marketing. Before I start the conversation, I just want to add a couple of points so that I can contextualize the conversation per se. So today, if you look at that word innovation and we try to decode that word, I personally think that we all are in a superstore of digital innovations. You know, so you talk about AR, you talk about chatbots, you talk about influencer marketing, you talk about content, platforms, you talk about marketing automation, you talk about data warehouse, you talk about DMPs, you talk about so many, and the list can go on and on and on, right? So that's really, we are surrounded with all of that. And obviously when we are looking at all of this, I think as the panel members out here, as with the kind of vast experience they have, we're talking about people cumulatively having about 50, 60 years of experience. They've dealt over the years with change and applied that change, learned from that change in the ecosystem, whether it's the consumer change, whether it's the technology change, whether it's the way the media is evolved, and then applied that to marketing. So we've seen all of that coming to play. What is making interesting, when we try to look at the present and we say that, listen, what's the most interesting thing now for us? So innovation is not just helping brands or existing brands market to consumers in a much better way, but now we are also at a point that because of digital innovation, there is a rise of new brands. Okay, so we are now seeing a virtuous cycle, okay, which is like saying innovation is not just helping existing brands, but it is helping people get ideas, and people are coming up with new brands. So it's a full cycle right now, guys. So this just makes it so interesting for all of us to be in that ecosystem and try to get our minds wrapped around it and use that opportunity, to our advantage from whatever roles we play at this current point of time. Yeah. So, to just start my first question, what I'll do here is I'll make another comment out here, and I say that, look, when we look at innovations and when we look at marketing per se, many of the panel members out here would very have closely seen with their own experiences, successes, failures, learning curves. As I borrowed this word from Ranjani yesterday evening, and she used this word which is called medium success, which I feel is such an appropriate status for many of us, because innovation is not about big success. Innovation starts with some to medium success, So let me just stop my monologue now. Yeah. And so what comes top of mind, Ranjani, to you when you think of marketing and innovation?
Hi, good morning, everybody. So 4 things come top of mind. Sorry, you're going to be subjected to another monologue. But as marketeers, I think chatting and talking comes natural to us. I think the first thing is just borrowing from a great saying. with great powers come great responsibility. So if you look at what digital innovation has done for us, it's given practitioners like me, great powers to go down the brand funnel, starting from awareness, going all the way to commerce. And how does every innovation play itself out very significantly across the span of the funnel? And coming from the jewelry business, I head up marketing for Tanishq. For us, it's helped us. Let me give you an example in two ways. One, we speak to many cohorts of consumers, and in the past, the spray and pay mechanism has been quite limiting. But today, you can find cohorts, customer audiences, lookalikes, feed communication to them depending on what is your job to be done. So I think the first learning has been, don't be overwhelmed by what you see digital offer to you. Look at what is the job to be done and apply the filter of which lever are you trying to influence between awareness to consideration to preference to commerce. I think the second learning has been that we've always been fed, thanks to our education system, like nothing succeeds like success. And that brings me back to the conversation we had yesterday about medium success. But I think now the whole mantra is nothing succeeds like experimentation. So if I look at the virtual try-on that you see on our Tanishq website today and where we started, we've come a long way. Had we looked at our first proto and said that's a failure, we wouldn't have moved forward at all. Or the chatbot, which was like a machine, and slowly we gave her an avatar, we gave her a feminine persona, we added intelligence to how the chatbot responds. Our first attempt was pretty rookie and paltry. So that's our second learning, which is like keep experimenting. The third is another debunking theory that man is a creature of habit. I think that's changing. Our consumers are adopting new habits faster than we are, so I think momentum is critical and is key. Fourth, I think something you spoke of, Sudhanshu spoke of, no man is an island. Today, the ecosystem that my team manages is vast. The amount of partners we've brought on board. We used to have a digital agency, a media agency. Today, my agency list, I mean, it's not as impressive as the way you had it at Woot, but it's a large, and everyone is a specialist who comes to the table with a certain expertise. And we have to build teams, and we have a lot of young members in our team who learn to work cohesively with these diverse set of partners, but still hold the brand together. I think that's sort of four things that I just wanted to kick off this conversation with.
I'll come back to some points later. Santosh, you want to pick up any cue and talk about, probably innovation, and I think if you could call out any failures in the process of experimenting with innovation.
Yeah, thanks, Deepak. I think a lot of relevant points made by Ranjani also on this topic, and maybe a few examples. And as you said, failures, we are all just out of COVID. In fact, one of the first conferences of Exchange for Media I'm attending physically, otherwise it's mostly on the screens. And here, I go back a year or 2 years back when COVID struck and a lot of people said now no showrooms, people will buy cars. That's what started triggering this entire digital buying process. And then we had a lot of collaborators. They pitched AR solutions, VR solutions to us, saying that, this is the way future of buying cars, and nobody would come to the showroom, they would not interact with a sales guy, so why don't you go online? And, this is a very natural process. And we said, firstly, will people buy luxury cars online? Because we are not a mass market manufacturer. And second is whether this experience would work. But having said that, if you don't try, you will never know. So within around 15 days, unlike a typical German organization, we were able to get all the requisite approvals. We got certain partners on board, and we went live within 30 days. And there we had our set of learnings. So one of the biggest learning, actually it was something that we could have easily figured out in retrospect, is virtual consultations doesn't work. Because there we realized that that many of the customers used to dial online but never used to keep the cameras on. And then later on we felt why? Because it's a two-way communication. It should be quite simple. So we did a simple dipstick research. We called up some guy saying, why didn't you switch it on? They said, hey, I was in my pajamas at my home and I don't want you to see me. I'm buying a luxury car today, so I don't want, so I'm fine to see your car but not me as such. So we had to shift. We had to shift to non-intrusive ways. Of course, chatbot were there, but it's too it's again not human interface, and therefore we now have chats with human interface 24/7. And from there till now, today, I'm proud to say we do 15 to 20% of our car sales online, which is more than 1,500 crores of business. Buying a luxury car, buying a Mercedes-Benz online was never thought of. We are the best market in the world today when it comes to buying cars online. We last month sold 100 cars via chat consultations. I am saying Jan to May period. Even, of course, you can say 100 cars over 5-month period may not be great, but still, chat, the guy has not, the person has not met the customer. So that's an example. We learned quickly, we changed the processes, we came up with a fantastic marketplace format, and we innovated. The other example I would like to give is, again, it doesn't need to be just a marketing innovation. Again, going back to the COVID example, we had a huge issue in finding COVID testing centers. And we said, can there be a product innovation which can help customers? So Google itself had not powered their maps at that point of time. We quickly spoke to Map My India. We had hardly a couple of centers across. They were able to juxtapose it, and in our head unit of the car, because all our cars are connected, we were able to give a solution where you'd sit into the car and say, navigate me to the nearest COVID center. So it worked, frankly, for 25 days, because by that time Google had everything there and much better, frankly, than us. But in that 25 days, I think the customer feedback was, at least you guys thought about it. And that's something which also goes beyond marketing or trying to sell something. Can you be relevant at the point where the customer wants some stuff, and how fast can we turn it around? So these are examples of innovation. Doesn't generally mean to sell a product or to just build a brand. What kind of value you can add to the customer also helps. So maybe helps the audience to understand.
I think, when he's echoing that part, and the word which just stays with me is that micro innovations or incremental innovations. So whenever you're looking at incrementality, or innovations are not really about going 20 steps ahead. Incremental innovation, I think, are very smart hacks to empower the business. Okay, so.
Just on the point you made, which is very interesting, and we experienced that the same with jewelry buying. We never thought people would buy jewelry through a video call. And we have a substantial amount of business that happens through video calls today, even post the normalcy coming back. And it's a point that Sudhanshu also made. When you have a strong brand and you're a trusted brand, your innovations take off from what you've already built over time. And that makes success or experimentation even more easy for you. So you must trust in your brand and believe that consumers are quite forgiving even if you have something which is a work in progress.
Yeah, I remember you having this point or this comment which you made yesterday was about the whole purchase journey, where the person is in the store, they are patching their family. Okay, so they are able to show the designs to them. They're able to quickly get a buy-in of which jewelry design works for them, and they are able to then take a decision. Absolutely. So this is a classic example. We are saying that, and yeah, so so that's a very interesting point out there. So shifting the conversation, Pragya, you're hearing two of our panel members, bringing out some diverse points. I'm sure something is sticking in your mind. So I'll just pass the mic to you.
Yeah, thanks. It's very interesting to hear cross-industry experience. And I was just talking some time back. Digital is, of course, exciting, and we've seen innovation almost every day. I think what puts back an ownership on us is to make very wise choices. Marketers often, when it comes to especially digital, have this fear of FOMO. I don't want to miss out this platform. I want to participate here. I want to be seen everywhere. What works for you is very important for you to judge. Now, giving an example of, my own brand, Crompton, we're actually into fans, where we currently the market leaders. We're into other categories as well. We're into appliances. We're growing very fast there. We're into lights. We're into residential pumps. And we've got into an inbuilt appliance category, which is very different from what we've operated in the past. An inbuilt hob, chimney, and so on and so forth. Now, what came as a task to us was, what works for fan definitely does not work for inbuilt, let's say. Fans is more than a 95% plus penetration category, and so is lights. And we're very salient there. So, what is the choice of medium which we need to adopt for fans? probably will not work for inbuilt. And therefore, as a marketer, it's our responsibility to choose what works, what doesn't work. And also within what works, not to get overly excited. Now, let's say fans does really well, we are growing in a market share, we're doing extremely well. Sometimes you get too tempted to make certain choices. I'll just give you an example, which was a partial success, as you guys call it. And I'll just give an example of a similar tool which was used somewhere else. So we started working on a new fan, which we launched, which basically stood for silence. And we said that, okay, fine, silence is what everyone talks about. Why don't we put it a little more forcefully at the point where it matters? So we started doing location-based targeting through one of the platforms. And we said, okay, we'll aim at inviting higher footfalls to our nearest outlet. Yes, we did get incremental footfalls. The idea was also to lead, the way the objective was defined, increase awareness for the new product, increase consideration, and invite footfalls. Now, 3 tasks on hand for a same product becomes a little difficult. Yes, it did lead to higher engagement, but it did not lead to incremental footfalls as we expected. And the basic thought or fundamental of what the brand stands for or what the category stands for is that the replacement cycle is just 5 years. You cannot insist on a consumer making a footfall into a shop by seeing a visual ad. Of course, you can lead to a higher top of mind, you can lead to a higher consideration, and therefore, for you to define your campaign success measures on digital becomes very important depending on which stage of the consumer journey you're in. And what is your replacement cycle, what is your category like. Now, the same example, if you take in for something like a McDonald's, would work a little better when you do location-based targeting. You've got, creatives which talk about certain offers. You immediately tempt as a consumer to go to the nearest outlet and then, seek that benefit or gratification which you get from a particular advertisement, within that vicinity. It doesn't work in certain categories, it does work in certain categories, and define your measurement index really well. So there has been, of course, certain learnings. There has been great successes. One of the brands where I worked earlier, which was one of the oil companies where we were targeting at mini vans, the smaller mini trucks. There we said our idea of location-based targeting is higher engagement and awareness with the consumer. So the overall business size or the segment size being relatively smaller, we wanted to ensure that there are no spillages, in our communication. So we started doing location-based targeting on targeting certain, van stands. The engagement was really great. The awareness levels went really high. And we saw great success with the campaign. Now, the same campaign applied to fans, same campaign applied to other categories with different objective led to different results. So it's very important that marketers, as they, adopt digital, make very conscious choices and rather, I would say, be cautiously optimistic about what they want to do instead of doing everything. So that's the task which I see is really important because we will have abundance of choices, which is great because we will have to use different tools for different spaces with different objectives. But what we need to do is we need to be really clear about that.
Cautiously optimistic of the time. Yeah. So Vishal, that's a perfect segue. You could be a devil's advocate out here and you could say that, listen, these are things which we have to be very mindful when you deal with innovation.
I'm in fact going to get into that only. See, as per me, in innovations in digital, it's a huge trap. It's a huge trap for marketers. And like you started the panel, there's AR, VR, metaverse, name it, and you have something over there. It's a huge temptation for marketers to keep on experimenting with.
Pragya mentioned the word FOMO.
Yes. Now, we need to be very careful about what marketing is. It's a very basic, okay, it's not that basic, but
It's a very complex thing.
but we don't need to make it more complex. We need to be very sure about what our objective is. Nowadays, I see brands talking about they've gone into metaverse, and what have they done? They've taken interview on metaverse. So what? What did it solve? What were you trying to gain from that? So I think innovation in digital could be very basic. I'll give you an example. I was working on one of the sports brands. I won't name the sports brand. And typically, from a media point of view, we were going across to all platforms where there was any sports content, there was live sport, whatever. But the needle wasn't moving. And we realized a very simple thing, which we should have done before we even went to that campaign, that most of the people who are watching that piece of content on sports are not playing, as in they're sports fans, but they themselves are not sports person. And that's the place where we went to a live panel. We recruited people, people who were playing active sports at least for 2 hours in a week. We studied their digital behavior, did a basic lookalike modeling, and then reached out to those people. And those people were not necessarily on sports platforms. And the needle moved. And it's a very basic innovation which digital kind of gives me. So I think these kind of innovations are more important rather than going by what is going to come tomorrow or day after tomorrow, what is going to be the future. I think right now we should do what is more relevant for the objective today. Another example I'll say is that let's not lift and shift. There is a solution that probably works somewhere in some other geography or for some other category, but probably not for your geography, not for your consumer, and not for your category. Geofencing is one of the best examples. Like, for example, it works brilliantly for Burger King and McDonald's in US, but you try doing the same thing over here. We did that for a brand, tried to move consumers to a format store with a special offer. Nothing happened. And then we needed to do the basic thing, went back to what the consumer wanted, what the consumer behavior is, did few tweaking, and it worked. So digital gives us a lot of choices now. There is a lot of innovation we can do, but we shouldn't get into a trap.
Check. Yeah. I think it's a very good point, and I firmly believe that innovation is not something that you are on a new platform, because currently a lot of marketeers, agencies, and teams, our own teams, they like to be on new things, what's there. That's not innovation. I think innovation is coming from the consumer insight to say what problem can we solve, and will the industry follow you? And are you able to do something as a benchmark for others and they follow? Even not for others, but first for your own brand. And then maybe the others follow you. So the trap is there are so many buzzwords, as Deepak rightly started with AR, VR, metaverse, so on and so forth, and new trends. It's all available in the public domain. Now taking that as a platform or taking that as a tool, will it qualify innovation? It sounds cool to do it. Good for the management, good to go back to the client or to your bosses and say, we have tried this. But maybe it is just, you're trying it, that's also great, because only if you try and if you fail, you will learn. But I think we need to start from consumer insights and really classify innovation as something that will solve some consumer issue or a marketing problem that we have in front of us. So that's, this discussion is more about innovation, so we don't want to take away the spirit of innovation, because you have heard stories which didn't work very well or partially worked, but at the same time, don't fear to innovate also. So yeah, Deepak, over to you.
Yeah, I think what we are hearing is useful and sustainable innovation. And as we do that, I think the focus shifts not on the innovation, I would probably say the focus shifts on us. We as people who are surrounded with innovation, or we as teams who are surrounded with innovation and with partners, which are in turn our close ecosystem, our bespoke partners. And when I say partners, I'm also talking about our own colleagues. Understanding that how can they tackle that innovation? Do they have the right mindset to do it? Anything which is new requires discovery. Do we as a team come together collaboratively to solve that problem, or is that innovation just being delegated? So because finally innovation is equal to risk, and risk needs to be managed. So I'll just, with that point, I know there are some thoughts on ecosystem, on team, on organizations around innovation. Ranjani, you would like to probably start.
See, I go back to, and I think some of this Vishal and Santosh also indicated. I think if you start with what is the job to be done, or what are you trying to solve, not sell, then you'll identify the right innovation. Like, and the whole value prop that the consumer is exposed to is very diverse and very huge. So somewhere, even as marketeers, we are conscious that the world is so evolving that on certain days, even as a jewelry brand like Tanishq offers you same-day delivery. Can you beat that? But it is that, it is Dhanteras, and I want to be able to put that gold coin in my puja, and I haven't been able to step out, or I don't want to step out, and therefore, can you make it convenient for me? So I think it starts from saying, what is the consumer problem I'm trying to solve, and does my innovation allow me to solve it? Can I solve it on my own, or do I need delivery partners, payment gateway partners, mechanisms around which I don't need to solve everything on my own. I need to get a team together to solve it. So I think that's the heart of the linkage. I mean, it stems from the consumer, like all of us said, but there is a whole world that needs to come together to solve some problems, and we have to orchestrate that.
Vishal? Anyone would like to add anything?
No, I'll just say that, understand your brand funnel really well. Where do you want to focus on? Because it will become otherwise very difficult. Top of the funnel, mid of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, each one of them will have a role to play, and where do you want to focus at that point in time, and where are you in the journey? So that's very important.
Yeah. So, we spoke about, there are certain keywords which I presume you guys would have picked up. Before I add the next question, I want to create this opportunity where if anyone from the audience wants to ask a question, please feel free to raise your hand. I promise you a 15-20 minute dedicated slot with one of them. I'll fix that on your calendar. That's the incentive for you guys. So if you're up to, don't hesitate to, show your curiosity. Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that as a pass. So before, the last, as we try to probably conclude the conversation or bring this to a logical conclusion, so far we spoke about, you got different perspectives around innovation out there. Having said that, innovation is also such a thing that which we're constantly seeking, right? As much as we have to manage it, we are always on the lookout of it. From that lens, my last question to the panel members would be that when they're closely looking at the funnel, which are the areas where they actually feel they need a little more innovation?
That's a good one.
No, for us, being a luxury brand, it's not about sales. It's about creating desirability for the brand. So, and digital generally and digital marketing comes with this performance metrics always on clicks, on pass-throughs, on cost per sale. And I think for us, the challenge is on the top of the funnel in terms of how the desirability can be increased using digital. And there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of science available, but still it lacks measurement like any other medium to some extent on the desirability side. But when it comes to end of the funnel, there is a lot of data available to analyze. So in our view, we are still looking at how can this via content, of course there are already solutions available, but what can we play? Because there is also sometimes the team comes up and says we should not be on banner ads, we should not be on some of those areas because as a luxury brand it doesn't suit us, and there is nobody going to see that this car at a small banner and then going to click and buy these cars. So that's actually taking away from digital advertising to some extent, but when we look at content we try to look at it completely differently. So for us as a brand, the innovation we are looking more is in the top of the funnel, surprisingly not at the end of the funnel.
Good one. I think,
Polarizing. I have a diametrically different thought, and I think that's nice to see challenges sit on both sides. I think retention and because consumers are getting promiscuous, they have choice. how do brands continue to be immersive, give consumers experiences that build stickiness and loyalty? And I know there's a whole lot of discussion. Do consumers need to be loyal to brands, or do brands need to be loyal to consumers? That's for another day, I guess. But I think that's where the largest challenge lies for us as a brand. Because we're a very strong brand, and we're a national local brand as Tanishq. But as more and more consumers have a wider canvas of jewelry options that they are looking for, how do we stay abreast? How do we keep them engaged? How do we create communities and conversations? We have been doing some bit of work there, but I think there's lots more that we can do. And as value propositions are quickly outsourced and resourced and equally shared across competitors, how do you stay ahead of the game? I think that's one of the things we need to constantly keep working on.
So yes, we do need more innovation in awareness, retention, and Pragya has more to add.
No, because you asked for a wish list, so I don't want to miss out the chance. So, of course, two opposite view, and this is little out of boundary. Of course, as marketers, and I can talk about my industry, one is digital, the other one is traditional. And so traditional that it can go into even in-store visibility, right? Now, how can digital play a role outside its immediate boundary of digital? So if I have spent money on in-store, on television, how does it give me an ROI there? Right? Of course, there has been thoughts around, if you do an outdoor, there are tools to measure that, how you're increasing awareness, engagement, footfalls, whatever. But is there a stable solution in the market for that? Because we tend to, for a mass brand like us, which is, into categories where we can't ignore the audience which are outside of digital, we need to participate there. The study says that consumers look for solution both online and offline when they look at a fan or even an electric kettle or whatever, but they tend to also go to the shop to buy it. And if they go to the shop to buy it, then I need to place my, brand everywhere, including my in-shop. So how does digital play a role for me to see how much of that is working for me? So that's the wish list.
The list can go on, yeah.
Thanks. I'll just like to point out that the biggest innovation that digital has brought to us is moving to one-on-one communication rather from one-to-many communication. And that is where, whether it's in-store, whether it's outdoor, whether it's online, whether it's offline, digital has a role to play. Somewhere we are putting extra burden on digital because of this whole attribution game. We kind of look at digital only from a performance point of view, looking for ROI on every buck spent, which we don't look at probably from offline media. And that is where somewhere we're limiting the beauty of digital. Digital has a lot to offer. And I'm not confusing it between personalization. I think that is another trap, and probably for another session. But this one-on-one communication, that's the beauty, and that is where we need to judicially pick up innovations that within that what we want to pick, whether it's AR, whether it's simple analytics, whether it's more in terms of targeting, whether it's metaverse. So I think digital can help you in your in-store as well as your outdoors and everywhere. And like Sudhanshu was saying, there's a lot of smart things that are coming up, and these smart things are talking to each other. When you open a fridge in a store and you pick up a bottle, it is calculating everything. It is noting down everything, who has picked up what, where was it placed on the shelf. So there's a lot that digital can help you with everything.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, guys. I'm going to just probably try to conclude this session out here now. What you guys heard about when we started the conversation, I hope you were cautiously optimistic of the expectation from this panel. Yeah, and I hope that as we've come to the conclusion of this thing, you've got your ROI of spending time with us. Yeah. One message I would like to give you is that all of us in the room, I think that collaboration is very key. So think of innovation, think of people in the team, or think of external partners. Probably, virtually just imagine them as they are your chief R&D partners. You don't have to invest into all of that. Each platform out there, each partner out there, and each mind out there, is there to come and give you a perspective, on any of these use cases, whether it is building one-to-one connections, whether it is aligning, towards the marketing funnel, but constantly, remind yourself that innovation or utilization of innovation is not to be done from a FOMO perspective. It's more to be done from a perspective that, okay, fine, I'm solving some problems. I'm not just adopting something just because I need to adopt something. Yeah. So with that, we'll conclude this conversation. Thank you so much to the audience for being patient with us. And I hope that you guys have a good day. Thank you so much. And thank you to my fellow panel members.